The Opinion with Michael J. I'm going to immediately analyze Pierre Poilievre's social media release in response to the just announced resignation by Justin Trudeau. And away we go.
Good day. Canadians desperate to turn the page on this dark chapter in our history might be relieved today that Justin Trudeau is finally leaving. But what has really changed? Every Liberal MP in power today and every potential Liberal leadership contender fighting for the top job helped Justin Trudeau break the country over the last 9 years.
Holy moly. Does this guy have a nice thing to say about anybody other than his family? And the people that are yes people behind him in this caucus? This guy does not say anything nice about anybody or anything. Let's go right back to the beginning here. You can see it for what it is.
Good day. Canadians desperate to turn the page on this dark chapter in our history.
On this dark chapter in our history. It was a dark, stormy night, folks. Come on, can you not see the parallel here? This is unbelievable. The fact that people have to be subjected to this kind of behavior from what could very well be the Prime Minister of the Canadian landscape. It's unbelievable that you have to put up with this stuff. First of all, Mr. Poilievre has not put forth any policy, any plan, or any concepts of anything constructive that's going to change things that have happened. And you might say, well, yeah, tax breaks and stuff like that. Well, let's put that in a parenthesis right now. Tax breaks over the last 40 years have wiped out the middle class. This is all the conservative tax breaks have done for the last 40 years. Wiped out the middle class. Any modicum of balance in order to provide a balance to a democracy. And this is what people fail to understand. You don't look at things like that. Just pure thuggery. Not as bad as the brown shirts in the early 1930s. But if we look south of the 49th parallel, we've seen it with Donald Trump using the Proud Boys and others. January 6th, they had an insurrection. Oh, it was a peaceful thing, eh? I don't know what you see on television. Well over 3,000 people. So, Poilievre, right away after the resignation, instead of thanking him for his work, it's a dark history. Understand that COVID-19 created a situation worldwide we have not seen in over 100 years. And it created inflation because of the levers needed to help citizens to get through the pandemic. Created what we see right now. Couldn't be avoided. It's a pandemic around the world. I mean, just for cause and effect. And so we see this right-wing push towards a right-wing ideology, far right-wing in certain areas. And it's rather disturbing because all we're going to see as a result of that is just more pain and suffering. You want to eliminate pain and suffering or no? So, the pandemic did it. The only country that actually recovered the best from the pandemic or the effects of the pandemic was the administration of a guy by the name of Joe Biden. And he did phenomenally well. like unbelievably well. And even in light of that, you say, well, that's not so, that's not so. Yes. If you look at the increase in GDP from state to state, and also Republican states, which are conservative here, former empire loyalists maybe in the States, if you go back in history, but the phenomenal increase in the States is unmatched by anybody else. And even in light of that, of what he's done, because he's not a salesman like Trump, and he's not organized crime like Trump, he got turfed to the curb, sent to the curb. So, as I said, over the course of the last 40 years, the electorate has put conservatives back in power over and over again that provide tax breaks because everybody's looking for a tax break. And all those tax breaks have done is created a corporate terrorist and wiped out the middle class. Now, we're going to see an interesting furtherance of the video by Poilievre.
Might be relieved today that Justin Trudeau is finally leaving.
Everybody wants to blame Trudeau,
really changed.
I blame
Every
you,
Liberal
Mr.
MP
Pierre
in power
Poilievre.
today, and every potential Liberal leadership contender fighting for the top job.
So here we see a similarity to the U.S. Now, because the pointing the finger at Trudeau all the time, it's not working anymore because he's resigning. So now he's got to point the finger at every MP of the Liberal caucus. Hey, this is what radicals do. What we're seeing here and what we've seen in the United States is very similar to the change that was implemented in the early 1930s in Germany. And we've seen that mirrored in the United States. People can't make a correlation right now, but when you have a leader that has no time for briefs, has no time for really running government, and we've seen that down south, where now these oligarchs such as Elon Musk are the guys that are doing the stuff. Because the real leader that was elected in the same manner as early 1930s Germany has no time for that. He just wants to play golf and do his thing. So there you go. Watch this here.
Help Justin Trudeau break the country over the last 9 years. All Liberal politicians actively worked to pass into law the job-killing inflationary carbon tax.
No. If you look at the carbon tax, you need a carbon tax or you need some reasonable facsimile thereof because climate change is an issue. You've got naysayers that say it is not. Let's put things into perspective. The planet, evolutionary-wise, has climate change. The inhabitants on the planet, which is the human being, has abused their privilege of using all the resources of the planet that the human being needs to have a happy, uplifting life. They've abused that privilege and created a toxic environment that has greatly accelerated the climate change to a point that it's going to be harmful for all. So unless we act now, we've been putting it off. We just keep punting that ball down the field and never addressing it. It has to be addressed. This guy's going to punt it down the field again. You've already seen in Jasper the wildfires. You're going to see other anomalies. You've seen it more pronounced in the United States. But I just want to make that one point for a starter.
A tax that carbon tax Carney...
Oh, and here's the other thing. By eliminating the carbon tax, do you really think that's going to make you rich? Do you really think it's going to make you afford another week's of groceries just because of the carbon tax? Do you really think it's going to get you a better apartment if you have to rent? Do you really think it's going to get you a new house because you'll be able to afford it because of axing this tax? I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to capital letters. N-O. No, it will not. It's a fallacy. You might buy your kid a couple of new chocolate bars a month, but that's about it.
Endorsed in his book. All supported a law quadrupling the tax over the next 5 years. All voted for or actively supported Trudeau's out-of-control spending, debt, and immigration. All passed Trudeau's housing policy.
So here we have the immigration card coming up again, too. And why I focus on the immigration card is because a lot of the success to the Biden administration is by a factor of two things. Number one, increased immigration. Number two, infrastructure spending. And it's created a positive increase in GDP that's just phenomenal. And people they don't recognize it. They don't understand. They cannot make a correlation in day-to-day life and what's going on between government, because I'm going to tell you, what government does and what a family household does and what a personal budget of the average constituent does is not the same. You're trying to make them the same because they're not the same. And this man is selling you a bad bill of goods. He's got no plan.
Policies that doubled the cost of homes. All Liberal politicians helped pass.
Now, doubling the homes. We blame that on Liberal politicians. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. Ontario, which is the engine of Canada, since 2018 has had a Conservative government. Conservative government has removed rent controls, has just given perks to developer friends, has not stimulated any new house building that's affordable. Corporations have bought up most of the rent, pretty much 99% of the rental properties. And you have what they call themselves financialized landlords that have to make money. They have put the price of housing out of reach. He's pointing the finger in the wrong direction. He's not telling you the truth. And it's a Conservative government that's causing the problem. And he's pointing at the Liberals where, no, it's a Conservative government causing the problem. And you have to understand that. Conservative government has created the housing problem issue in Canada. Simple as that. And you've got Daniel Smith in Alberta, and you start to see heavy-handed moves to oppress and suppress. And we've seen that under the Stephen Harper government, suppressing the information from Stats Canada. There's a lot of similarities. This gentleman here worked under the Stephen Harper government, so he knows very well what he plans to do. His plan, if you watch the Jordan Peterson interview, is based on a plan that he put together when he was in school 24 years ago. And to actually think that a plan that was put together 24 years ago is going to help now, you're misguided. It's not reality. There is no relativity. The situation now is very unique. It's not happened in 100 years. The policies of 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago helped create the problem you have now where the middle class is pretty much wiped out. And this is where these guys want to go back to doing the same thing. This is their only thing. Tax cuts. Wiped out the middle class.
catch and release bail and house arrest.
And if you apply what didn't work 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago to today, what makes you think what didn't work then that created the problem or led to the problem today is going to work today? It's not going to change the price of vegetables overnight, not in 5 years, not with this manifesto.
For the most rampant reoffenders, policies that increased violent crime 50%.
And now here, the fear, crime, violent crime, gun crime. These are local issues. They're not federal government issues unless you can take guns out of the hands of people in a broad scale. That's, requires a lot of participation from all members of parliament from all sides of the fence. But he's talking violent crime, gun crime. These are localized issues. They're not, for the most part, federal government issues. Local issues. And I'm going to pivot back to Ontario again. That's a conservative government. Alberta, that's a conservative government. So he's really just pointing his finger back at himself because the reality and the facts are they're conservative governments that are the issue. They're just using fear-mongering to get your vote.
Gun crime 116% and hate crime by 250%. So given that Liberal MPs and leadership contenders unanimously supported everything Trudeau has done, why dump him now, right before an election? Have they had a change of heart? Is it because they feel guilty that they doubled housing costs, hiked taxes, unleashed crime, broke immigration?
More fear. Why are they getting rid of Trudeau? Trudeau made the decision. But he made a decision after pondering, and everybody says, well, he should have made it sooner. Well, there's no time that's the best time in those kind of situations as the present. So he came to what he felt was a no-win situation. He's thinking of the people, finally putting aside his ambitions, because he does not have the support of the people that work underneath him. If he had the support of the people that worked underneath him, that would be a different story. But he doesn't have it. So he's doing a very prudent analysis of the overall situation and realizes he cannot move forward in a positive manner to focus on governing because he doesn't have the support within his caucus. Very simple process.
Forced a quarter of the population into poverty.
No, he didn't.
They continued supporting Trudeau when he did all of those things. No, their only objection is that he is no longer popular enough to win an election and keep them in power. They want to protect their pensions and paycheck by sweeping their hated leader under the rug months before an election to trick you and then do it all over again.
Here's the problem. This guy, Monsieur Pierre Poilievre, is the guy that's tricking you to do it all over again. You're going to waste 4 years, maybe 8 years. Another interesting fact you got to understand. Every administration politically in Canada, it seems to be a trend, provincially and federally, there's the 10-year sunshine rule, where after 10 years people are fed up and they turf the government out. That just seems to be the reality or the trend over the many, many decades of Canadian politics.
Now, while leaderless Liberals focus on saving their jobs and fighting each other for power, the country spirals out of control, and out of control housing emerges.
No. Just because of this event, the spiral is not happening. The spiral of fear is being created by Pierre Poilievre to create anxiety in the people of Canada in order to give this guy a pass when he doesn't deserve a pass.
emergency, an out-of-control migrant crisis, an out-of-control $62 billion deficit, not to mention tariff threats from the United States. Oh, and another...
Tariff threats. Tariff threats from a guy that has no idea how tariffs work. Trump has no idea how a tariff works. I've already explained that. He just thinks it's a baseball bat. It's a guy who doesn't, his first term, didn't spend time reading briefs, is illiterate, has no idea how to use a tariff, and thinks that trade deficits are money that his country's lent to other countries. And if any person that votes for people, whether it's Canada or the U.S., really thinks that a trade deficit is money your country has been lent to another country, a trade deficit is not like that. All a trade deficit is, you brought goods into your country because your country does not have sufficient amounts of those goods for the proper operation of your economy. Simple as that. There's no lending money with a trade deficit. You really have to understand how things work.
NDP Liberal carbon tax hike kicks in this April 1st. Everything's out of control. And now the government is out of control.
The government is not out of control. This guy's fear-mongering. He, just like the people in the States, drill, baby, drill, more carbon. And if you keep doing that, things are going to be out of control, no return. And you're going to actually hurt the people you're supposed to be serving in an irreparable manner. And this is what you have to understand. Just do your research, folks. Use discernment. Don't listen to people just because they say a certain thing. Do your research and use discernment. And when you listen to certain people providing advice, be careful who you listen to. Do the research. Do not accept what they say. Like a guy like Joe Rogan. Guy's out to lunch. He doesn't question Donald Trump. Gives him a free pass. And then people say, Kamala Harris had a chance. Well, apparently Kamala Harris had a conflict schedule, could not do a job. But the thing is, this Joe Rogan just gives everybody a free ride. Doesn't matter if it's bad information, bad facts that really have been misconstrued and are lies. And so, a guy like Joe Rogan, forget it. He just wants to smoke a cigar, drink a drink, and have a good time. He doesn't care who he hurts as long as he's doing okay. If he has a few daughters, he may at some point in time consider about the cause and effect that it may have on their futures. But I don't know if we're there yet.
Cannot go on. We need a carbon tax election now to choose between the NDP Liberal costly coalition that taxes your food, punishes your work, doubles your housing costs, and unleashes crime and drugs in your community. Or common sense conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
Also not true.
Canadians can take back control of their lives and their country. Take back control of our border. Take back control of immigration. Take back control of spending, deficits, and inflation. Take back control of our streets by locking up criminals, banning drugs, treating addiction, and stopping gun smugglers. We'll cap spending, axe taxes, reward work, build homes, uphold family, stop crime, secure borders, rearm our forces, restore our freedom, and put Canada first.
Makes no sense. Everything he said to put Canada first is going to increase spending greater than it has over the last 10 years. He just makes no sense. And you're just going to lap it up, give him a pass? Come on. Have you not learned by what happened down in the United States? And if you really want to pay attention how Trump got into power and his MO as a leader, you're going to see many parallels to what happened in early 1930s Germany. This is not a road you want to go down, folks. Just letting you know. Very carefully analyze what's right and what's wrong. And maybe what you think's right might not be right. Be careful.
All with one mission: to bring home Canada's promise that every hardworking Canadian gets a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food and homes on safe streets where all are united for the country we know and love.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right now. That cannot be done. Cannot be done under his leadership. Cannot be done if he has 2 terms. If he has 3 terms. He does not know the formula in how it can be done. It's tricky. And why it's even trickier is because you have to understand all of Canada. A lot of space is not easy to... that's why we have a couple major centers. Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, Halifax. That's it. We got a couple major centers and that's it. A lot of this land is not easy to populate and build up the infrastructure needed to make them work. But you also have to find a balance between this planet that gives us everything we need as well. And this is the factors that nobody has taken into consideration. So now, I wouldn't be giving this guy a pass. This is a mistake. I'm telling you right now. That's my point of view. And I'd like you to provide information in the comments section that explains why my point of view is not the most prudent. That is what I would like you to do. So look at here. 5 things we learned from Jordan Peterson's 2-hour interview. CBC, Jordan Peterson interview. Peterson interview was just a friggin' complete pass. And I'm going to explain in more detail in another video why it's just a tragedy that people give credence to this Pierre Poilievre based on this Peterson interview. So now, here's the CBC. Let's look at the Toronto Star. There's a paywall, so I can only get part of the article. But here, this part of the article, with Justin Trudeau dangling from the proverbial political cliff, his primary rival spent 2 hours in conversation, actually 1 hour, 41 minutes and some odd seconds, with the right-wing provocateur Jordan Peterson in a podcast released this week, in which Pierre Poilievre made his case for a Canada with more oil production. More oil production? Just creating more carbon in the air, more climate change. Look what happened in Jasper. Look at the wildfires out west. Look at how it's affected the climate south of the border. And then less wokeism, like wokeism. That's another thing. That's from the 1930s. Had a lot to do with racism, but now it's being repackaged and created in such a way to create fear of people in the present. So what is wokeism really? Let's look at it. We're going to look 3 parts. Let's simplify this process very easily. Sleep, wake, woke. Sleep, wake, woke. You are asleep in the resting state. Wake, you awaken. Woke is when you've awakened and you're moving on into your daily life. That's it. People have created something else out of it. Don't buy into this bullshit. And that's all it is. Like QAnon or QAnon or whatever you want to call it. That was created by man to manipulate man. Antifa. Who's the head of Antifa? Is there anybody the head of Antifa? I haven't heard of anybody that's the head of Antifa. Created by man to rule man. Simple. Now, he says further, if you look at this article, if you look at the history of President Trump, whoa, hold on, back up. After wokeism and a tighter relationship with Donald Trump's America. Donald Trump is only president for himself. He's not working for the people of America. He's not working to provide stewardship for a well-balanced world situation where security and prosperity. Donald Trump is only out for himself. He's a man that does not even know how a tariff works. So why would we want a tighter relationship with Donald Trump? Understand what Donald Trump is. Work within that framework that works best for the people of Canada. Now, here it further states, if you look at the history of President Trump, he negotiates very aggressively and he likes to win, Poilievre said. Yeah, he's very aggressive. He likes to win. He'll use quid pro quo. Guy's organized crime. Guy was laundering money for the Russians, puts Putin in power. That's why Putin has a hand on Trump. And this Poilievre has no read. He has no understanding of what really has put Trump into power. He's got no clue. And then Poilievre hasn't even got a security clearance for his own country. So he cannot even be privy of situations that are of high security risk within his own country. He doesn't care to. He thinks he knows better. That's dangerous. And then he says, but in the end, he doesn't appear to have a problem if his counterparty also wins. He would show up to deliberations with deliberations. Trump could not do a House of Commons day to day like Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, Bloc, and Green Party have. Trump can't do it. All he is a showman. Give him rallies. He can do rallies. He does well with rallies. That's why organized crime uses him. And so for Poilievre to say, I think we can get a great deal that will make both countries safer, richer, and stronger, based on what Poilievre, he doesn't even know where Trump's coming from, so I don't know how he can have any deal that benefits Canada when he doesn't even know where Trump's coming from. Got to know your opposition. You got to know who's going to be your trade partner. You need to know these things. And he says that's the goal that I'll be coming into the negotiations with. He obviously doesn't even know Trump. Has no clue. CBC brings up a few different things. Calling for an election. Has no qualms with the federal election. Tough talking oil lobbyists and crime. You know, the big five oil companies have idiot lobbyists, he says. They have brilliant workers, incredible. Yeah, everybody's got great workers. But understand, oil is not an infinite resource. It's a finite resource. And you need it. There are many alternatives that will work well. You've got to spend the time to research the alternatives and incorporating them into society to change the way we do things. And they pledged the biggest crackdown on crime. Like, come on. Let's go into a different direction now. Organized crime is a problem. And it's a problem in a lot of institutions, banks, other areas, and to the extent people are just not aware of. But the fact of the matter is, crime, for the most part, is a localized issue. So to say Poilievre is going to crack down on crime, it's just a fear card. He's not going to do anything. Just a fear card. All he can do to help is to give more money to the provinces to help deal with it. And then it gets to where he's going to get into more spending instead of cutting spending. And the other thing is, if your population's gone from 30 million to 41 million over the course of a few years, and it's increasing, why would you think cutting spending is going to help when you're increasing the needs that have to be looked at? So, on a pro rata basis, it just makes no sense. It's just ignorance within the highest understanding of the word. And it's just fear-mongering here. Trudeau's government, extremely radical ideology. Okay, lots of land. Yeah, a lot of land, but there's a lot of land that just can't be used just like that. Staying on the right. What is this right, left, middle bullshit? Just do the right things. Doesn't matter where you come from. Do the right things for the people of Canada. Get away from pointing fingers and creating separation. Work together. No more hyphens. Ethno-cultural conflicts. We're not interested in the world's ethno-cultural conflicts. So it brings up things that should be not even part of the government, really, for the most part. But he wants to do that to stoke fear in the people, growing the economy. Says to cut back in corporate welfare to large corporations. Bring down the deficit in taxes and unleash the free enterprise system. Let's burn the planet down. Let's decrease taxes, and we're going to end up decreasing taxes for the government or the corporations, because based on the conservative playbook, corporations will have a trickle-down effect to the people, which never works. And I'll give you an example. Biden's latest 4 terms is going to go down in history as the best in the world. And it's based on the middle out and lifting up the bottom. Forget about any corporate taxes relief for the corporations. Middle out, bottom up. That's what Biden did. That's what he focused on. And it created a return out of the inflation spiral quicker than any other country in the world. And you people just don't get it because you're not paying attention. You're not asking the right questions. You're getting caught up in slogans. The guy that fear-mongers, he's got a few pain points. Crime, inflation. And, we can go in depth on each one of those very easily. And then he comes up with slogans. I'll bring you home. So he talks about utopian illusions. But he creates his own utopian illusions that you're supposed to lap up. And the ones that he creates fear from others, you're supposed to suppress and look as evil. Well, that's just the way it is, kids. That's what's being done to you. You got to understand that. You just keep doing it like Trump did over and over, and people start believing this crap. And then compliments for Peterson. Peterson was directed by, as I explained, the College of Psychologists of Ontario. He blames the federal government for his problem, but he's under the umbrella of Ontario psychologists. So it's, blind. And then again here we have Jordan Peterson here, Danielle Smith, Tucker Carlson. Here's a guy that's giving you lies. Here's a woman in power that's brought Stephen Harper in. And understand, Stephen Harper cut down on border security and border patrol stuff back around 2011. So if you got a border issue, Stephen Harper, conservative government that did it. I'm going to say you don't have the border issue people make out to be. Then Tucker Carlson goes to Russia, says Putin's good. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, President of the United States, spent a couple decades laundering money for Boris Yeltsin, and then Putin was Yeltsin's successor because Yeltsin wanted to go off and tipple more vodka and didn't want to do any work. So this is where you're at. And then you've got a guy like Elon Musk, just like we're seeing early 1930s Germany, Elon Musk. Back in Pierre Poilievre, back in the ADF in Germany, far right, very far right, extreme right. And you people don't get it. You say, well, the cost of a banana went up. Cost of eggs went up. Yeah. And if you think these people have any policies they're going to implement that are going to bring the cost of those goods down, no. You're chasing a false narrative because it's a false narrative that's been created to instill fear, and a false narrative of no substantive policy, planning, or concepts. It's mostly just conjecture and the basic conservative playbook, tax cuts. Tax cuts over the last 50 plus years wiped out the middle class. You haven't learned yet? Yikes. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that. Questions, comments in the comments section. Love and peace to everybody. Take care and be good. Ciao for now.